The year 2003, my former colleague from the left party in Sweden, Jonas Sjöstedt, planned a photo exhibition in this parliament about the genocide. This was, however, stopped from a higher level because it was recognized to be too political sensitive. What is it about the recognition of an almost 100 years old genocide that makes it so controversial? I don't think there is a simple answer to this question. From Turkey's side, I think it's about strong nationalism. It is common that a strong sense of nationalism comes with a belief in national identity. It is also common for nationalist movement to glorify the nation's history. If Turkey were to recognize the genocide on Assyrian and Armenian people in the Ottoman Empire from a national perspective, negatively affect the image of a glorious past and connect the national character to genocide. I don't believe in the fairy tales of a nationalism based on the myth of a homogeneous nation, history, and one national character. It is ideas like these that make intolerance, racism, and in the end, genocide possible. As a consequence, this means that when I work for the recognition of a genocide in the Ottoman Empire, I don't put blame on the people living in Turkey. But it is at the same time important to see the problems and pitfalls when discussing a subject such as this. When the extreme right in Western Europe argues for recognition of a genocide, it is not about humanism and reconciliation. Instead, the logic is similar to the same kind of dangerous nationalism as advocated by those in Turkey who are denying historical facts. It has its roots in racism and Islamophobia, where Turkey is seen as a threat against Christian Europe and hence must be stopped from entering the European Union. When we criticize Turkey for not recognizing the genocide, we always have to give a balanced picture of the situation and never do anything that can strengthen racists in Europe. But why is it so important to recognize the genocide? I believe that it is about giving the victims' relatives a possibility to redress. It is only through a general recognition and condemnation that they can move on and begin a process of reconciliation. Once again, I want to emphasize that no one is accusing the people now living in Turkey crimes committed 100 years ago. Nobody can be guilty of anything that has happened before their birth. What we, on the other hand, justly can criticize is the inability of the Turkish government to handle the problem. It is not just that they refuse to recognize the genocide, but they are actually actively working to prevent it from being mentioned. People that talk about the genocide in today's Turkey do it with the risk of going to jail. This is, of course, unacceptable. The Turkish government must take its responsibility and stop violating human rights. Instead, a public discussion about the genocide on Assyrian and Armenian people should be initiated in order to commence a new path towards reconciliation. When the Swedish Parliament was about to vote on the subject, there was a lively debate And the opponents argued that it was not something that Parliament should settle. It is historians and not politicians that should write history. And surely they have a point. But in this case, the politicians aren't writing the history because the history has already been written. Virtually every historian agrees that there was a genocide committed. The recognition is mainly a political statement with the purpose of supporting the relatives of the victims who live in a time where the fabrications of history has been institutionalized in Turkey and where it is punishable to have a different opinion on the matter. I don't believe that many politicians would hesitate to recognize the Holocaust as a support of a Jewish victim if it was illegal to speak about it in Germany. What is the difference? Recognizing the genocide will further put extra pressure on Turkey to deal with its history and pave the way for reconciliation. And it is time for Turkey to seriously confront its democratic flaws and every person's equal value and right to freedom of speech has to be two absolute minimum requirements. Thank you for listening.
As a Swedish journalist with an Assyrian origin, it's more or less my responsibility to follow everything that deals with Middle East and also Turkey. And I had the opportunity to be the very day of the voting in the Swedish Parliament. And just 2 days after that, I had a couple of interviews to do in my investigation in Ankara. And I don't think that anyone can imagine the magnitude of the news of the recognition in Turkey itself. For me, as an Assyrian, though also Swede and grown up in Sweden, it was more or less unbelievable. I still can't believe everything that I heard from the mouth of many Turkish politicians. But, as we also have today, intellectual Turks that have themselves worked and struggled for the recognition that shouldn't be forgotten. So I think that we are on our way in every process of Turkey and its democratization, or I hope. Our next speaker is also a known human rights activist and politician from the Netherlands. As many of you I know, I think 1 or 2 buses came all the way from Netherlands today to attend to this hearing. Her name is, let me see, because we changed the program. Let me see if I can pronounce it right. Mrs. Ria Oomen-Ruijten for the European People's Party. Was that right? Yeah. Netherlands. Great. It's your turn.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, dear colleagues, I would like, first of all, thank you that you did invite me for your today's conference. And as you know, you are aware that as rapporteur for the European Parliament of Turkey, I closely follow the developments in Turkey. And I can see that the Turkish society is changing. Sometimes, also for me, too slow, but in the many contexts I have, I dare to conclude that the democratization and also modernization of the Turkish society is supported by a large part of that society.